purpose of this event, I think, is twofold. One is to really be able to celebrate and recognize the great work that's going on here at Georgia State. Their work not only with establishing these type of tools to be able to have analytics tools to be able to guide advising, to be able to guide the pathways for students, but the fact that they are using them and using them so broadly across academic and academic support units is something that we certainly want to bring to scale at some of our other campuses. The second purpose is we've got a number of our campuses here in the system that through their Complete College Georgia plans have identified this as a priority. They have emerging efforts in these areas. We really want to make certain that our campuses have a forum to be able to share that information, to be able to share ideas, and hopefully be able to accelerate their progress toward implementing their programs and their services on their campuses. Well, one thing that I think of when I reflect on what Georgia State is doing is how intentional it is. How those tools are being used to identify students that are on track for completing a degree. They're in academic good standing, they're making progress toward a degree, but being able to identify what are the barriers? What are the barriers that they may have in terms of supports academically? What are the barriers they may have from a financial aid standpoint? And really be able to encourage and incentivize those students to be able to continue making good progress toward a degree. The difference that that's making for Georgia State is evident in the statistics, just the highest level statistics. It's amazing that over the last 5 to 10 years, depending upon the statistic you're looking at, both progression rates have increased greatly, success rates in terms of students being able to move through and complete their degrees. Overall graduation rates of this institution are not only leading Georgia comparisons, but they're leading national comparisons, and Georgia State has been singled out as a leader nationally in all of these efforts, and it's showing in the statistics that they're a leader nationally. As a system, we do have an important role to play in connecting our 31 campuses with opportunities, connecting them with programs and services that we know have been proven to be best practices. One of the things that we've made a commitment to is not just having conversations every once in a while about Complete College Georgia, but identifying focal areas. One of the things that we've tried to do is, whether it be new models of instructional delivery or it be this discussion about analytic tools that can be employed, or whether it might be in the future a conversation about enrollment management techniques and best practices. That's a great and important role that the system can play to then bring our academic units, bring our institutions together to be able to advance their work. We have to remember that the system does not educate, the system does not have students, the system does not have alumni in terms of the system office, but that plays out on each of our 31 campuses and the various partners that they have to be able to deliver the research, teaching, and service that the state of Georgia needs. The most exciting thing that I've seen already today is the number of individuals from our campuses, the faculty and staff that are in attendance, that are going to get to move about the campus and go into some of these offices and some of the units at Georgia State and see how these tools are actually being used. I mean, to me, that's when it's going to become real and a way to translate that work to that person's campus, that person's department, that person's unit, that person's classroom, and to be able to make real, well, what's happening here at Georgia State that might be able to play out on my home campus. I've already heard conversations in the hall today that light bulb is going off for a number of folks, that there are going to be a large number of meaningful takeaways from the time on campus today, and appreciate the leadership here at Georgia State, the faculty and the staff that have made today possible, because that is making those connections for our faculty and staff around the state that are in attendance.
Well, Parature is a CRM, customer relationship management system, and that sort of technology is fairly new to higher education. You typically see it in businesses, corporations, and one of the challenges that we have is being able to track the life cycle of the student experience. And so using this type of technology gives us better insight, a broader view of the student's experience with regard to enrollment services. And so we implemented it last summer to help us help the students better. One of the things that we always say within enrollment services, at least in one of my office, like student accounts, like a support service, is that we never want to be a barrier to student success. And so having this type of system that gives us this valuable data gives us the opportunity to serve them better and give them the opportunity to focus more on their academics versus paper pushing or getting problem solved. Well, I think there's a couple of different keys. The first thing is when a student has an issue, the one thing that for me as a manager, we want to get the issue resolved as fast as possible so that they can go back to focusing on their studying, their schoolwork. And so one of the things that it does for my staff is that it gives them the ability to efficiently manage issues. So if there's something that comes in from our office and we need to collaborate with other offices, we can do that either electronically, we can seamlessly transfer issues so that the student isn't sent around and around, to different offices, so we can seamlessly coordinate behind the scenes and get those issues resolved. From a management perspective, being able to capture the information about the student issues gives us the ability to identify trends and to track issues that come up so that we can proactively anticipate them and sort of eliminate those barriers to students being effective in their schoolwork. And so I think those are really important keys for us, is that we want the students to be able to get the information they need in a way that is important to them. So if they're up at 3 o'clock in the morning studying and they have a question about their account, we want them to be able to go online and access the information, and if there's something that they can't get to, they don't have to wait till we open up to send us a question. They can go online and send a question if they can find, if they're not able to find it, and then we can come in and get that information and seamlessly sort of resolve it while they're going about their business. They don't have to sit in our office and wait to find out an answer. So it's been beneficial to us to give us a way to more efficiently manage student issues and also collect that data so that we can avoid those issues in the future if possible. I think students kind of expect this kind of service because, one thing you learn when you're in a service-oriented type of a function is that our customer, our competitor, sometimes they're comparing us to the kind of service they get at Sprint or, somewhere else. And so they kind of expected us to have this type of functionality for them. And so I think for them it was like, all right, Georgia State, go, and we've heard they're now like copying, and they're using the language about tickets and, knowledge base. So they're learning to incorporate this service within, their student experience. And so I think for them, what they want is an answer as fast as possible, and they don't care who gives it, they just want the right answer. And I think for them that's been the most important thing, is that they're getting answers faster and getting access to us in a more efficient way. Well, I think when you're dealing with student support or student service issues, one of the things that you have to understand is how your students interact currently with you. And so if your students like to call you, you still need to be able to give them that service. If your students want to come in, you still need to be able to provide them that service. And I think technology like this is important because you can still provide service to the student in a way that is effective for them. And you need to have the type of system that is flexible enough that can manage those types of student touch points, is what we call them. And so I think those are key. And I think the other thing too is having the system grow organically, making sure you're evaluating what are the issues that are coming up and actually using the data to make improvements, because that is the single largest benefit of this system for the student, is that you get this information and you prevent them from having those same issues in the future.
So advisement, before, we had a lot of really dedicated people, really cared about students, who tried to do the very best they could to give them good advice, but they had no empirical basis for that advice. Now with our new predictive analytics, we have an empirical basis for the advice that we can offer the students. It's not just kind of what I think or what I hope or even just sort of what seems like it should be the case. We can actually, drawing on 10 years of retention, progression, and graduation data at Georgia State, make informed decisions and give the students good basis for the information that we're providing them. I do think that it's more work. It's different, certainly, but I think it's very empowering for academic advisors to have the information that they need to help students make good decisions. I think that they very much appreciate that. I think that they've always wanted that. That's what they've always tried to do with the information that they had. We've just been able to allow them to synthesize lots and lots of information in a very effective manner. We see a lot of return users. We see a lot of students who, you can tell that the students really appreciate the fact that it's not just sort of inference, but there's data behind it, that there are markers that are going off, or that there are grades that they've earned that could indicate that they need some extra support, or that there's some concerns. They really are responding well to that because they know that we're actually paying attention. It's not just random. We're not waiting till they're in deep trouble before we call them in. We call them in for good things, and we call them in when we have even a little bit of concern, because hopefully if we can handle the little bit of concern, it doesn't become a lot of bit of concern later. It does make hard questions for students much easier because they have better information on which to make a decision. So it might have been a hard decision in the past, but the pathways are much clearer because the information makes those pathways brighter.
Well, as we know today, only about half of students who start a bachelor's degree actually finish one in 6 years. Only about 20%, 25% finish an associate degree in 3 years. We have a significant college completion problem in this country, and this is happening for many reasons. When it comes to the issue of degree maps and predictive analytics, the subject of this conference today, it's very much about students being able to stay on track, taking the courses they need to succeed, being able to know which courses those are that make up a degree plan. Georgia State's doing all the right things, and there's still more to do. We need to get more students on very intentional pathways to on-time completion. We need to make sure that the courses they need are available for them when they need them. They need to be sequenced in the right order. Today we say hello on campus to first-generation college students and say, this is the course catalog, find your way forward. And we're surprised by the result. Taking the wrong courses, sometimes choosing courses they know that won't count toward their degrees simply in order to maintain their financial aid status. We can do better than that. Predictive analytics allows that to happen. We can give students better advice. We can show them a path forward, and then we can watch them closely as they progress on that pathway. And when necessary, when something goes wrong, intervene with help when they need it, just in time, and not just because it's their turn to pop up out of the filing cabinet that day. Well, I want everybody to know that Georgia State is really at the vanguard of this work. Obviously they developed a student success culture here maybe 10 years ago. That's step one. They decided that they were going to look closely at why their students were succeeding. I hate to report that many institutions don't even do that. But now they are, thanks to efforts like Complete College America. More and more of our institutions in our states are focusing on student success, student completion, and they understand how deeply important that is as it relates to our economic development. Georgia State is at the leadership, the vanguard of that effort. They understand that student success matters. They've looked closely at why their students are succeeding. They're intervening in the right way, but they're doing it in a way that's very efficient, very effective. The leading technology is being utilized here to be able to do that, and they're helping develop new ideas too. So Georgia should be very, very proud, not only of its collective work through Complete College Georgia, but its unique leadership at Georgia State. We know today that about half of the students who start pursuing a bachelor's degree don't complete one in 6 years. Only about 20% of those who are seeking associate's degrees complete them after 3 years. We have to do much better than that. There are a number of reasons for this. One of them is how broken our remediation policies are. I'm happy to report that Georgia, again, is a national leader when it comes to developing new ways to get students into the college-level courses they need, but with some additional supports built around them so they can succeed and stay on track. Sometimes courses aren't available that students need to be able to stay on track. Through efforts like Georgia State's, these courses will now be guaranteed to be there when students need them. We call this guided pathways to success, a holistic system that makes sure that the mathematics they use is appropriate for the careers they want, that makes sure that the remediation they need sometimes happens in the context of a college-level course for credit, that makes sure the courses are there when they need them, that lays out a clear plan for on-time graduation. A commitment that you will graduate when you need to. There is no better strategy than that to help students save money. look, a 4-year degree is a lot more affordable in 4 years than it is in 6. And so simple structures like that, simple notions like that, can make all the difference between whether Georgia will have the economy it wants to have in the future or one that is diminished. The essential elements of a guided pathway to success system are many. Number one, you need to align mathematics to programs of study. The only students who should be on a pre-calculus track are those who are going to take calculus someday. And mathematicians tell us the college algebra has one purpose: preparation for calculus. So we need to, and we are doing this in Georgia. I'm glad to report that Georgia is doing this as well. In fact, Georgia is also a national leader in this regard. Your math faculty got together and said, you know what, everybody doesn't need pre-calculus. And so now they're putting new mathematics into programs of study. That's number one. Number two, fix your remediation problem, and you're doing that. Put more of your students directly into the college level courses they came to study, but give them additional support around it. Focus on time to degree. Students should be taking at least 15 credits per semester in order to complete on time. The mathematics is pretty simple. If a bachelor's degree is 120 credit hours, you need to take 15 credits a semester. Shockingly, lots of students don't do that because they're told that 12 is full time. We need to do better on that. And Georgia is also standing up a 15 to finish initiative. Structured schedules, block scheduling, predictable schedules. Many of our students are working today and engaged in very delicate balancing acts between work and school. Jobs they have to have in order to afford to go to college. This is a reality. We can no longer pretend that everybody's going full-time, living on a residential campus, getting most of the bills paid by mom and dad. That's only 25% of students today. 40% of our students are going part-time. They're exhausted. There's nothing wrong with colleges meeting them halfway and saying we're going to block your schedule so you know with certainty when you'll be on campus and when you're available for work. Georgia's also making efforts in this regard. And bringing all those pieces together is what we call guided pathways to success. Very highly structured, guaranteed, on-time degree plans for every student. Predictive analytics is the ability to be able to identify early on when students are in trouble, need some additional help. It also helps students make very important choices. You can look at the high school performance or the college performance of students and give them advice that's data-driven. You can say to a student, John, based on kids I know just like you, who've been through this institution for the last 10 years, I would recommend that you consider going into the health services area because you do well in those courses. That sort of rich, data-driven information is incredibly valuable to students in making very consequential choices. And remember this, these students often come to us with never having had any experience in making choices of that consequence before. They want the help, and they want our expertise. When you ask students, would it be okay if we told you the sequence of courses you should take in order to accomplish your career, they say, please do. You're the experts. Why are you leaving it up to me? It's almost as though in our zeal to provide as much academic freedom as we possibly can and choice, that we've instead given the students freedom to fail. And that's not what they want. Certainly they want to have a wide variety of choices when it comes to making career options. But once they know what they want to do, once we've helped them through predictive analytics make an educated, informed decision about a good match for them in the future, then we should show them in a clear sequence of courses what you need to do in order to accomplish that goal. That's what they want, and there's nothing wrong with that.
HCM Strategist is a policy and advocacy firm. We are advocating for increased attainment through the Lumina Foundation. And part of the state policy agenda for Lumina is very focused, of course, on increasing the percentage of adults who have higher credentials beyond high school. And of course, one of the items, the policy items of focus is guided pathways. So we're here to learn more about and to support the work that Georgia State is doing. Delighted to see institutions from across the state who are here. And then at the end of April, we'll be bringing states from across the nation to come and look at what Georgia State is doing. Very focused on moving students forward, very successful, very results oriented. And so we're delighted to be a part of this today. Well, there are a number of hurdles. For some students, access is around affordability, don't have the dollars. Some of them just do not understand the process They're just, they're stopping out. They don't have the guided pathways that they need. And so what you see here today is a real recognition of the comprehensive approach that it takes to move students forward. A focus on intrusive advising. What do you need? When do you need it? A look at guided pathways, making sure that students are guided through the process in a way that helps them to navigate, particularly first-to-go students who don't have the expertise of parents or others to fall back on to help them navigate the system. The understanding that for some kids, $300 makes a huge difference in whether they're going or not. So there's a financial aid component. There's an advising component. And so you see a full campus approach to making sure that students are successful and outstanding results. Georgia State is obviously an institution that has moved minority students, Pell students forward, one of the best in the nation. So obviously great things are happening here, and we're glad to learn more about it. So one of the things that I would point out is that it's not the data, it is the use of it that makes a difference. Institutions across this country are, as someone said today, awash in information. But the use of that information, the analytics, the ability to say, for a student who's like you, here is what it takes to be successful. Here's what we've learned from looking at 10 years of information around student attainment and success. That is the sweet spot of taking information and moving it to action, and using it in a way that helps students move forward. And so I am very excited about the predictive analytics work. There are a lot of institutions across the country that are trying to figure this out, but this information sharing for students to make good decisions, to help them move through the process is critically important, and well done for Georgia State to have figured out how to use that in a way that provides results, that drives results, and arms advisors and students with the information they need to make a real difference. So for the institutions and states that will come, obviously we want to make sure that we are either seeding some ideas with them, look at guided pathways, Georgia State can do it, you can too, or we're taking institutions that are already taking baby steps and saying, here is a comprehensive work plan for how to make it happen. From enrollment managers to financial aid officers to the college deans and faculty, what are the steps and what are the questions you should be asking? And here are, sort of the ways that they have taken this on. So for some of the institutions and visitors, they will be learning a little bit more in terms of a first initial exposure. For others, it will be sort of how do you move from liking something to implementation of it, sort of buying it, right, and implementing it for students. So we do see the work as important because nationally it's great to have examples of people who've done more than put their toe in the water. They've jumped in, they've looked at the information, they've mid-course corrected if they needed to. Georgia State has done that. And so it's great to be able to come and show that and say they've done it, you can too, and all the better for our students across the country. I would just say that Georgia is doing a lot of wonderful things. You have a very engaged system, you have some great leadership. So as we think about what's going on, I think it's kudos to the people in this state for continuing to focus on students, for continuing to ask the right questions, and for having so many people who are very, very interested in stepping up, moving an agenda forward, understanding how to make that happen. To see so many people here today from other institutions who want to learn more across this state, I think speaks volumes to the interest in student success here in the state. And that's a top-down, bottom-up, all the way across approach. And so we're very excited to see that and continue to work with Georgia in our work through Strategy Labs.
So the problem we're trying to solve in first-year programs is really trying to help students transition effectively and successfully from high school to college. Even though students have been very successful in high school, it's a totally different environment, different requirements, and a lot of times, even though they've been very successful, and they don't always have the right skills and the right knowledge about the resources available to them and things like that. So the freshman learning communities try to aim and try to solve that problem by bringing 25 students together based on their major, based on their interests. And we put them in the same courses for the fall semester. And the students, by taking an orientation course, get introduced to the resources available on campus, about the academic skills that are needed in order to be successful in college, as well as network with faculty members or different instructors and staff members in the college of their choice. So the whole program stands for 1 semester, for the fall semester, but these students basically get a good orientation and a good welcome as to what does it mean to be in college and what does it mean to be successful, and what skills do you need in order to be successful in college. Well, the benefits that we see is that students tend to be better connected to university. They get to know, they know what resources are available to them, the offices that are available to them to help. They usually know what kind of questions to ask. So it may seem obvious for faculty members or different staff members who work in a university setting, so you need to go there if you have that kind of question. Freshmen don't have that cultural baggage and cultural knowledge, so the benefit of the first year programs, whether it's Success Academy or Freshman Learning Communities, is that we are providing them with that kind of cultural baggage, as well as the fact that they actually get to know students at Georgia State. We have 32,000 students, and it's kind of hard, obviously, to get to know other people when you're one of 32,000. So by participating in freshman learning communities, you get to know at least 24 other students. And we do see the benefit, and we do see that that connection they make with other students persists. It's not just the first semester. We actually see it throughout the years. We have students who, even though they have different majors, they're still roommates together. They take every so often classes together just to try to maintain that connection with the students. Yeah, the first year programs are not limited to residential college or specific population. I mean, Georgia State has quite diverse population. I'm not quite sure about the percentage of students who live on campus, but it's not the majority, I don't believe. But we're still able to connect because the benefits don't reside on whether or not you are a typical 18-year-old college student freshman who live on campus. The benefits of the orientation and the FLC and the cohort model goes way beyond just being on campus. You take classes together, you work together, you do co-curricular activities together. So whether you are 18 or non-traditional freshman, or it doesn't matter what your background in terms of race, socioeconomic, or whatever, you are basically connected to other students who are experiencing the same things at the same time as you are. So making that connection, and we don't restrict our programs to a specific population. And that's the beauty of Georgia State, I think, and the programs is that our students get everything. In one freshman learning communities, you're going to get people from all over the place and people that you probably never would have talked to in high school because they were not in your high school. So that's a new environment, and that's what's the beauty of the programs. I think we're looking at the spring admits. So the students who were admitted during fall semester and started this traditional type of student who would start in the fall semester for their freshman year tended to do very well for a lot of our programs that we had and things like that. The students who started in the spring, though, that's when we looked at the data, we saw that the students were not actually performing as well as we would have liked. So we basically look at the data, we look at the students, what can we possibly do to help those students achieve the same kind of success as those who start in the fall semester. So the impetus to change was, one, the realization that we had an issue here with, well, not an issue, but a problem in the sense of the performance of the spring students. And it's not because they were, bad students, it's just that for some reason, they were not getting the resources and the help that they needed. So we moved them to an earlier admit term. So instead of spring admit, we asked them to actually come during the summer. And during the summer, we do provide them with the individual help that they need, whether it's financial aid, whether it's advising, academic supplemental instruction, academic coaching, and we provide them with individual help that connects them to university a lot more successfully than when they were in the spring. And basically, we continue to surround them with the resources, with the help for the entire year. And what we've noticed is that those students now even outperform the students who start in the fall, even though they don't necessarily have the same GPA, high school GPA coming in or things like that. So it's really rewarding to actually see the students who needed more help and we're able to actually provide it to them. And they respond very well by having higher retention rate, higher GPA, and we just see it also, just the way they are connected to university and how they are now involved in peer mentors and orientation leaders and supplemental instruction leaders. So we see how they are definitely a part of the university and very successful members of the university as well. University and the institution benefit greatly. It's not just the students, obviously, who are now able to stay at the college, and do well. The university get obviously a higher retention rate. The students perform better, and it's just better for a university. You don't want students to fail or just to stay around for one semester and then leave. We want students, we admitted them because we know they can succeed. So providing them that support and that help and seeing them succeed and flourish really is a great benefit. And really in my office and a lot of other offices, whether it's advising, housing, and so many other offices, we're there to help students. And that is a benefit also for us. We may go the extra mile every so often or a lot of times for those students, but when we see the success, when we see how the students now are, get the Hope Scholarship, when they didn't have it, they're now eligible for the Hope Scholarship, when they're becoming peer mentors and student leaders across campus, that is something that we take pride in and something that we're very happy for the student. But that benefits the university as well. We want to make sure that students who are accepted to Georgia State succeed and actually graduate. First-year programs has tremendous benefits to university and the university system of Georgia as well, yes.
Introduction of new data systems into student success has really made the difference between us having the ability at a low cost to personalize education. We've known for centuries really that one of the most effective ways of teaching is in a small class setting, the instructor giving a lot of personalized attention. In many ways that's the liberal art elite college model that has been so effective for many, many years. And in a way we're beginning to approximate that now at a much larger scale and obviously a much less expensive scale at the public university level, where we can understand students' individual needs and direct very specific messages to them and very specific types of support to them based upon good data and good analysis of past evidence. One of the challenges is evolving from the point of having data available, which in this day and age really isn't much of an accomplishment, to having data available that is actionable and having the people in place to actually act upon it. And that's really the big test here. We have lots of systems out there now. Most of them are already present on most of our campuses that allow us to track almost infinite amounts of data. The question is, are you able to sift through all those mounds and mounds of data, find the information that is most important, that will have the biggest impact upon your students, and then are you able to set up a structure so that those students are impacted in a timely fashion in a way that makes a difference? There will always be resistance to change in any institution, and higher ed is not only no exception, but maybe one of the worst culprits as far as being resistant to change. And faculty often will resist change, especially if it means the shift of resources away from one of their pet projects to, say, a data office or advisement or other student support offices. I think the trick is to gain some early victories and to be proactive in using hard evidence in order to sway skeptics. And what we've done at Georgia State is take small pilot programs, really be careful about tracking the data. Although faculty are by definition, they're trained to be skeptics, one thing wins them over, which is good hard evidence. So if you can go into the room and show what a difference something will make, in many ways it wins the conversation very quickly, because faculty choose the careers that they do because they care about students, because they care about education. So if there's a way to show that by doing something differently we can educate and we can have students succeed at higher levels, then that's usually going to win the argument. I think there are probably at least a couple benefits to being able to use the data-based approach and the analytics approach to external stakeholders. First, I think it's crucial that higher ed changes some of the perceptions about what we are doing and makes it clear that we are not just taking money and from either the students via tuition or from the state via appropriations, and wasting it away. That we are trying to be as proactive, as strategic, and as helpful to students as we possibly can be. I think that's important. The other thing I think is important about changing some of those expectations is developing partnerships and alliances. That we have found that since we have been more aggressive in using data and talking to various stakeholders, from representatives in the Georgia House to foundation boards and foundation presidents and so forth, that when we present data to them, they recognize that there's a clearer connection between their support, oftentimes their dollars, and the kind of results we will see. And they're much more willing to invest. We've had some of the biggest gains we've ever made in foundation gifting over the last 2 or 3 years, when we have led with, this is not just why we want the money, but this is precisely what we've done so far. These are the results we're getting, and these are the results we could get if you were to give us your support. We're really just in the infancy stage in using predictive analytics. I think in higher ed and at Georgia State, we have begun to have the ability over the last 2 years to track and make predictions for individual students. That's a big breakthrough. Before, we were looking at large cohorts of students. How do low-income students do, or how do other groups do? Now we're looking at individual students, and that's always going to be a better model. But I think next on the horizon is spreading these predictive analytics to other areas. We're engaged in a project now, and we'll go live this summer, in working on financial analytics, where we've gone back and looked at 10 years of Georgia State financial data. And what we're trying to do is similar to our academics project: find early warning signs that a student is off path, so we can intervene before it's too late, before they've already dropped out. Now, we're doing that on the academic side by seeing if they've gotten certain grades in courses or made poor choices about which courses to take, and trying to get interventions early on. The next step is doing that in the financial sphere. So hopefully we can find out if a student is on path to have deep financial problems before those problems become too difficult. Beyond that, we have a third project, a third stage, which is then to connect some of the analytics we're collecting to career choices, the next step for students. Many go on to graduate school. Many more will, of course, go into careers in the workforce after they graduate college. How can our predictive analytics, which are increasingly effective in predicting what major might be the best fit for students' abilities and interests, how can those same analytics then predict what career might be the best choice for a student? How can it help them winnow down some of those choices and land in a field where they're going to be their most effective and their most successful?
The Panther Retention Grant is a need-based program that was implemented over 3 years ago here at Georgia State University. The basic criteria for the Panther Retention Grant is that the student must complete a free application for federal student aid, which is a FAFSA, must have an unmet need, must be in good academic standing, and meet satisfactory academic progress. Student must have utilized all of their financial aid here at Georgia State University and must have an outstanding balance. The average size of it could range from $300 to $2,500 per semester. I would say the average grant amount is around $1,000 a semester. The outcome and impact is that we're graduating more and more students each year. 70% of our students at Georgia State that receive the Panther Retention Grant graduate within 2 semesters. So that's been a huge benefit for the university. It's a win-win situation for the students as well as the Georgia State University, because we're reinvesting in the students and the students are investing in us. So we're helping them achieve their academic achievements, but we also getting a benefit by getting, not only having them graduate, but getting a financial benefit as well. A student can receive the Panther Retention Grant for 3 semesters. One of the things when we implemented the Panther Retention Grant, we're very cautious about awarding it to incoming freshmen, because we don't want to set the expectation that you can get the Panther Retention Grant for 4 years. So our expectation is that we try to target students that can graduate within 3 semesters. So I would say there's a cap of 3 semesters on the Panther Retention Grant. The best candidates is that, giving an example, starting during the fall, we identify students once fees are posted. We look at all students that have an outstanding balance at the breakdown. We have a report that we run. We identify who the students are, and what we do is we identify the basic criteria that I mentioned earlier must complete a FAFSA, must have unmet need, must be in good academic standing, and we award them accordingly. Some students will self-identify themselves, but for the most part, we strategically identify who we want to award and make the financial aid award. I would think that the first thing I would do is, from an administrative and strategic standpoint, is seeing how it will benefit the students. Keep the students in mind and not necessarily the university in mind, because it's going to benefit the university. So just keep whatever criteria you set for the grant, make sure that it benefits the students, and it's a seamless process.
The Keep Hope Alive program is a program that we started back in 2007, in which we're targeting students who have recently lost a Hope Scholarship. We are inviting them to apply for a program in which we're funding them $1,000 per year. We're giving them an academic coach and a litany of other services to bring them back to where they need to be. Because we have recognized losing the Hope Scholarship is not only a financial burden for these students, but our data shows that it's a impedance to progression, retention, and graduation. Historically, the average student who loses a Hope Scholarship only has about an 8% shot of ever regaining it. That same student graduation likelihood greatly diminishes. We're finding that around 20% of students who lose Hope Scholarship are graduating within 6 years. The students who go through the Keep Hope Alive project, on average, historically, are regaining Hope Scholarship about 50% of the time. It's not where we want to be at the university, but it's still a large gain when we're comparing 8% of students who are not getting these specialized services. Essentially, what we do at the end of every semester, we target the students who have recently lost Hope Scholarship. We reach out to them, invite them to apply, and essentially we just admit people until we run out of funding. So that's what we do for the particular students. We're looking at students between a 2.75 and 2.99 GPA, because those are students that we could most likely work with and mathematically get them to Hope after a semester, 2 semesters, or a year. For the other students who we cannot help through the Keep Hope Alive project, we have other retention initiatives that we kind of sparse throughout their education. So in the first year experience, part of their seminar course, they're going over some of the Hope retention data. We also are offering university-wide success workshops where the students are exposed to what happens if they keep Hope. We are also developing a preemptive Keep Hope program. We're going to work with the incoming freshmen who already have the Hope Scholarship. What are some of the tips and tools and strategies to implement now at the freshman level to make sure you have this throughout the 4 years of education, and what happens if you do lose it, and what other services that are there if you do lose it, and what are the risks involved. As soon as our students are freshmen at the university and they're taking part in our first year programming, they are getting exposure to fiscal health and the importance of keeping merit-based scholarships, financial aid, satisfactory academic progress. So something that we try to drill into our students as soon as they step on campus. If at any point that message is lost, we also have supplemental things when we're talking about this in the student success workshops. For example, we roll these in to the general university population. We also go to housing and present these same initiatives, so students in the dorms have the convenience of us coming to them. So it's an ongoing initiative where we're touching our students and trying to communicate the importance of managing the funds that they have, keeping the funds they have, and garnering more.
The University Advisement Center, we have just created a new center. We've hired a brand new staff of 42 advisors, and so we have 62 advisors available for students that are in their freshman year through their junior year. We provide scheduled appointments, we provide walk-in advisement. The students come in at their schedule, or our advisors are reaching out to them on a daily basis. We help with scheduling of classes. We kind of help them with any type of resources that they may need on campus. And the new structure has worked very well. Historically, we had a centralized small unit, and then we moved to, and it was decentralized in the colleges. At first, we thought we would not have a lot of the students would not be able to find us, or they wouldn't know really where to go, and it's been amazing. And in our first year, we've seen over 33,000 students in the University Advisement Center. The predictive analytics, I would say, and I've been advising for over 20 years, is really probably the #1 newest addition to the advising process that has really brought us into the new century. I mean, the days of what advising was 10 years ago and what advising is now, we don't really ever take away the human factor in advising, but when you add the technology piece, you're really giving your advisors a lot that they can kind of bring to the advising appointment. So we always say that, you know, technology does not take the place of the advisor. What it does is it enhances. And so if you're dealing with a student who's trying to change their major, or you're dealing with a student who's uncertain about their major, or a student who's trying to decide, you know, what will my next 2 years look like? How hard would that schedule be? Predictive analytics have given the advisors a way to kind of show them and say, you know, this looks like, you know, this is a good path for you. Look at what the predictive analytics say that you're going to do based on historical data. And so the students, what we've heard, the students really like the system. They like to see something tangible. A student would come in and they would say, I want to change my major, and you would say, well, sure, what are you interested in? And now you can say, you look at the predictive analytics, you look in our GPS system, and you can say, you know, this is what looks like these majors would be good for you. And so it's really, our feedback is that it's been very positive. Our advisors love it. It helps them be much more effective and intrusive and give them really factual analytics that are able to help cause the conversation to go the way that we would like for it to go, which is definitely more about progression, not just about scheduling your classes or what the student may be interested in, but we can show them the hard facts that help them progress. One of the main effects we've seen is that we're trying to help students that are in a major that they're maybe not progressing in. The predictive analytics have shown that if we can intervene in a timely way, that they are able to help them and advise them that they're able to pick a major that they will then progress at a faster rate, still within the area that they are interested in, what the courses that they're taking, the major that they want to take, but they will progress and graduate in a more timely fashion. And so predictive analytics have helped us there. They've helped us also in kind of see which courses that they should take in a more balanced schedule. And so if you're looking at the predictive analytics, you can see the courses available to a student might all be of high risk. And we can say to the student, you know, these are risky courses, let's really balance your schedule. And so it's really helped the advisor kind of lead the student into a better path.